Welcome back to my channel, Beyond the Blur. I'm Yashima Marshall, and on my channel, I talk about the psychological and social challenges that we go through as visually impaired people in trying to cope with our vision loss. So hopefully you have been enjoying the series I've been presenting about the stages of vision loss in reference to grieving our vision loss and the things that we're going through as a result of that. So this week, I'm going to be talking about stage 6. Oh, stage 6? Nope, stage 5. Stage 5, I'm going to be talking about, and that's acceptance. Acceptance. And you're like, oh, Yashima, what does that mean? Acceptance. You know, acceptance generally just means getting to the point where you have accepted your new normal. You're no longer struggling with denying that you're here, trying to bargain your way and find the new cure, a new alternative to vision loss and going blind, but you're learning to sit in it and you're welcoming the challenges, the new normal of being visually impaired. And let's understand something about acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean that we're giving up the fight. It doesn't mean that, we don't care, but acceptance is really saying that, we're really ready to move forward. And for you, it may look like it's time to figure out, how do I still live my life the way that I want to live it? Of course, some things are going to change. Let's be realistic, right? And you have to do some things differently, right? But the reality is that when you're in true acceptance, you're ready to move on to what that looks like. So you're researching, you're trying to find out, what agencies here in my community are going to help me get to a point where I can adapt and adjust to my vision loss. How am I going to learn to, walk with my new cane? How am I going to continue to work if that's something that is part of your goals and your desire and that you want to do? What is it going to take for me to learn how to cook in my kitchen so I can see the things I need to see? All of these things. How can I work my cell phone? Oh my gosh. Isn't that one of the first things that we learn to do? I don't know about you. But learning how to work my cell phone and to be able to see it and do the things on my cell phone that I need to do, that was part of the acceptance, moving forward to that. No longer being frustrated always about my situation and how to do things, but accepting that there are adaptive tools to help me do them. And like I was saying, going to agencies, because, in your community, there's usually agencies and the state agency you want to start with, some type of blind services, Department of Blind Services or something like that in your state, in your city, and look for, and they will direct you and guide you to what's more close to you in your community, the places you can go to get help. And so you're starting to research and do all those things, figure out what do I need to do to move forward. And then you're also, emotionally, you may be in a different state right here, right? You're now at the point where you can start talking about it, dealing with your emotions without getting so overwhelmed with it. This may be the time that you decide that you're going to really share and talk with people. This is kind of the point where you stop masking your vision loss and your disability of what's going on. You start letting people in, letting them know what's happening, where you've been, what's going on. And for me, I'll tell you a little story, of course, right, about my journey through this part. Acceptance came to me in a couple of ways. I decided that I couldn't feel this way anymore. That I was like, I know that there's something in this world, something left in life that is for me, that God has in store for me. You know, I had purpose, I had passion, and guess what? I believe that I can still have that same purpose and that same passion and that same drive for life that I always had. I just need to figure out how to do this as a visually impaired person, what that looks like. I refuse to be defeated. I am going to figure out a way. I don't know about you, but my personality works. I'm a solution focused kind of person. That's how my personality works. That's how I'm wired. So, you know, I'm going to find a solution for it. And so that was part of my acceptance. And so I was at that point where now I want to tell my family really what's going on. Not that, oh, well, I had an eye surgery and oh, well, this and that, and kind of like downplay what's happening. But I was going to let people know, my family, let them in my journey, where I was really at and what was going on with me. That I was, you know, losing my vision very progressively. And the doctors think that I'm going to be, you know, possibly be blind, you know, after a certain amount of time. But, you know, so that was a big thing for me. I went around to certain family members. You know, my parents knew a little bit what I was going through, but nobody knew the in-depthness of it. They didn't know the seriousness of what I was really going with, what I was facing. You know, they just thought that maybe I was just having some, you know, when you tell people you have a vision problem sometimes, they just think that you're maybe need to get some new glasses or something. You know, I don't know what they think sometimes when you say blind, legally blind, or I'm losing my vision. You know, because I don't think when I was getting glasses and wearing glasses that I thought that I had a visual impairment and that something was wrong with my eyesight, that I was losing my vision. So it's funny to me when I tell people or telling people that I'm losing my vision, that people wouldn't think that it was something serious. So I was going around and I had to tell my family really where it was at. And then the other part, a part of my acceptance journey was I had a coming out party. Go on, don't be judging me, but I did. You know, because I did a lot of things, and you know, I worked in the community, I volunteered in the community. I have a nonprofit where I work with women and do all these events and stuff like that. And so, you know, I had to accept that was going to look different for me. And so a big part of myself and my identity was to make sure that I talk with these women, at least some of the core women in my nonprofit, what was going on with me, so they knew exactly what was happening with me. And so I had a party. I had a Christmas party at my house, and it was nice and everything, big to-do thing. And I had a point in my party that I made a speech to everybody was there. I wasn't going to have any individual conversations at that time. If someone wanted to know more in depth about what's going on with me, we could talk one-on-one after that. But at this moment, because I'm used to being a speaker and talking about things, so I thought there was a really good time for me to talk about my healing journey and what I was going through and what I had been going through over the past 2 or 3 years. And here I am at this point and what it looks like. And so that was really, for me, that party and being able to share my emotions, share my journey, share what was happening with me, my disability and my impairment to a really high level and understanding. That was freeing for me. I felt so much freedom in that moment. And when I did that, with that true acceptance came my ability to really walk through the next door. Walk through that door of where I was to go next, you know. And so that was really, really powerful for me, the acceptance, because it let me know that I was resilient. You know, I had to remember that there was an inner strength in me that I could tap into. You know, it was there. So that was really good for me. That was what my acceptance looked like. And so that's what I did. I got right on it. I told my husband, I said, listen, I can't live like this. And he was like, you know, what do you mean? I mean, I can't live a life without purpose, without passion, without things, goals. I refuse to not live my dreams, to stop living my life because of this impairment, because I'm losing my vision. I'm gonna just stare this thing right in its eyes, and we're gonna face it. And so I need you to get on a computer, get on that phone. Because at that time, I didn't know anything about any adaptive tools at that time. I couldn't, we hadn't researched any of that stuff yet. And so I told him, I need you to get on the computer and I need to figure out where I can go to get my life back, period. Because at that point, I had been really out of commission. I took myself out of commission so I could begin to heal, so I could begin to, figure out what my next steps were, what my life was going to look like, what I wanted it to look like. I wasn't just gonna just go with whatever was gonna happen. What I wanted my life to look like, and so I said, we need to find somewhere, sign up where I can sign up for a program, sign up for something to figure out what the heck I need to do now. What now? I'm here. And so we got right on that ball. So if you're at this stage now, and I'm not saying, listen, let's just be clear. Because I like being real. I like being honest. Okay, that's just who I am, part of the process and dealing with Shima, right? You may go back, just because you get to acceptance, doesn't mean that you're not going to go back and circle back through some of these other phases, right? These other stages. Doesn't mean that you may not go back and be angry or frustrated, that you may not, bargain. Well, maybe I don't have to do this. Maybe if I do this, I can do that. It's not too bad. I'm not saying that you're not going to, circle back through some of these stages, right? I'm just telling you how to know when you're going through the healing process and dealing with grief and mourning, how you can move through it and know that you're moving through it in a healthy way, in a way that's going to be productive for you, a way that's going to help you thrive and continue to move forward in life, okay? And so this is what I'm talking about. So I'm not saying that you're not going to feel angry, frustrated, depressed, sad, still mourn your vision loss and wish you weren't blind. Some days you're going to still wake up and say, I don't want to be like this. I want my vision back. I don't want to be blind. And that's okay. Because it's not that everybody just wants to accept and be blind, right? It's our reality, but we're not signing up, for this willingly. It's just something that's happening to us. So, with acceptance, I just want you to start, figuring out what are your next steps. Because my next steps in this journey in terms of acceptance are not your next steps, right? What does that look like for you? What do you feel like you can do? Do you think that your first step is making sure that you know how to cook? Is your first step making sure that you know how to work on your phone, use your computer? What does that look like for you? What are those next steps? What is it that you still want to accomplish in life? Because you still can do a lot. What are your goals? What are your dreams? What are your next steps? And I want you to ask yourself that, and take a moment, even during this video or after this video, to write down your next 5 steps in your vision loss journey. What does that look like for you? Are you going to call an agency? Are you going to look online and see what programs they have? If you're in a rural area, maybe you don't have access to something you can go in and see what's happening. But what are your next steps? That's truly acceptance. And I always want you to remember this about acceptance. Acceptance is not giving up. It's not just deciding that we're going to take it and do nothing about it. But acceptance is the foundation to resilience. Acceptance is the foundation to resilience. And I know you're resilient. You can make it through this. And it's time to accept the challenge. It's time to accept your reality. And it's time to accept that you still have a life. You still can live a life, a great life, despite your vision loss. So join me back here. I hope this was, helpful to you and gave you some good tips and nuggets and you can use to kind of move forward and accept your journey where you're at. And I want to continue this journey. We have 2 more stages to go through, number 6 and number 7. So next week I'm going to be talking about number 6 in the next video. And it's talking about rehabilitation and adaptation. So rehabilitation and adapting to our vision loss. What does that look like? So I'm going to be talking about that in our next video. After you accept and you figure out what you're going to do, what's next? What's our next adaptation? What's our next adjustment we have to go through? All right. Thank you for joining me on Beyond the Blur. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share this video with some people who are out there. We are all out here with visual impairments. We're out here. We're dealing with this. The struggle sometimes for some of us is real. So make sure you share this with someone and you may be changing someone's life just sharing this information. Talk to you next week. Toodles.